Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to the DawgLand podcast. We are on season 5. This is the season premiere of the podcast. We are back, and what a better way to do this than with some big Browns news. Unless you've been living under a rock, Saturday night, the Browns got their first of their key contract extensions done. Nick Chubb hasn't signed it yet, but the Browns and Chubb both agreed to a 3-year extension worth $36.6 million, averaging out to $12.2 million a year, with $20 million initially guaranteed at signing, could get up to $30 million fully guaranteed. There's only one man that I could bring on to discuss the Nick Chubb contract extension. It's Nick Chubb's number one fan, Mr. Jack Duffin. Jack, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, yeah, you're leading me on false pretenses. You told me it was a half-an-hour show just about Paul DePodesta and snuck in the Chubb news without telling me. So,
oh, man. We will talk about that other contract extension as well.
But no, it's we're in a nice world now that running back deals aren't as crazy as they used to be. So, hey, it's not one I'm a fan of, but it's also not one I'm pulling my hair out about. It's not like we've sat there and gone, hey, here's 40 million. So over a couple of years. So yeah, we'll get into the details, but is it optimal? No. Is it a disaster and world ender? No. And that's basically where I stand on it.
Yeah. Before we break it down, let's talk about it because former Browns president Joe Banner, he's been going on a warpath on Twitter, like hating on this deal in terms of Nick Chubb, saying that he took below market. I think he's crediting the Browns because they got him below market. But like, Jack, do you think this could be a trend where running back contracts are going to take a dip, or are we still going to see big ones? And this could be just a case of, the Browns got a good deal. Nick Chubb took maybe a slight hometown discount, because when you look at what potentially the franchise tag would have brought him, he did take less money, essentially.
Yeah, so 16, and I'm looking at these deals in 2-year windows because every running back, and I'm going to go through this, you might see, hey, so-and-so got a 5-year deal. There's only 2 years of it guaranteed, and then teams can get out of it. So we'll run through this list, and this is all in the last 16 months. So we're going back to the start of last offseason with Christian McCaffrey as the first deal in this long run. So Christian McCaffrey got $39.9 million over 2. Lots of money. Yeah, you could probably look at a 3-year deal and go, hey, it's $50 million over 3, but effectively it's $39.9 million over 2. Then Derrick Henry got signed. And this is where we then see everyone else in a big group. Derrick Henry got $25.5 million over 2. And then I don't remember the order, but we'll put everyone else in. Mixon, $27.5 million over 2. Kamara, $27.2 million over 2. Dalvin Cook, $25.1 million over 2. Jones got $20 million over 2. But he was an interesting one, because we'll get onto should Nick Chubb have waited till free agency. But we saw no one wanted Aaron Jones, because what happened? He had to run back to the Packers with his tail between his legs, going, hey, can you pay me, guys? And he got 20 over 2. But Nick Chubb got 24.4 over 2. So did the Browns manage to hold a gun to his head over the table and go, hey, you can test free agency, but it didn't look good for Jones. We could franchise tag you and screw you over that way. The other bargain chip they had is Kareem Hunt. Hey, if you don't like it, we've got a probably 10th, 11th, 12th best running back in the NFL, and he's on $6 million a year. So quite frankly, if you don't want to take our deal, we'll franchise tag you once. You can walk in free agency, and good luck. They were in a really, really, really strong negotiating position as a team, but the whole running back market's fallen through the floor. And that's it's a trend, but we've seen it a lot more. The sort of the Zeke deal, the Christian McCaffrey deal, the Todd Gurley deal, even like David Johnson in there. Those deals are just not getting offered now. And that's not a Browns doing well thing. That's just a league-wide. They've said, nah, we're not interested.
Yeah, I think the league's taken notice that, like, we cannot afford to give running backs these type of contracts anymore. Like, obviously, the Panthers are still paying McCaffrey. The Saints are still paying Kamara. The Cowboys are still paying Zeke. But, yeah, I don't think you're going to see these big ones. Saquon Barkley maybe will get it. But this
That
is
is the
Dave Gettleman is an
interesting name.
old school GM. I mean, they've paid running backs in the past. It would seem to think, I mean, depending on what he does this year, because I haven't heard anything about a contract extension with him, they might be in a wait and see mode. See if he can stay healthy, see if he can come back with a strong 2021 campaign and then pay him. But he might be the last one to garner a huge money contract.
Yeah, and it's lots of factors that play into this. At the end of the day, hey, you've got the cheap rookies coming through. Teams are more and more aware that running back injuries do happen. You've got the sort of a player mortality rate at, like, when I say mortality, I'm talking about their playing career, not everything else that goes on in life. But playing mortality rate is about 28, whereas most other stuff is 30, where you start seeing that decline in production. And as well, the other factor is teams, every year the league has been going, they run less and less and less and less and less and less because they're passing more and more and more and more. And that trend has to balance out in pay. But it's now the franchise tag cheaper than running backs, punters and kickers. That's it. No one else's franchise tag. Every other position in the NFL is better. There's tight ends in there. So it really is time where people say, hey, look and point and laugh at the running backs don't matter movement. And they're not saying running backs don't matter. They're just saying, hey, there's so many good ones. They don't move the needle enough. Passing's more efficient than running. Them guys are winning through, because if Kamara and Chubb get similar deals to Christian McCaffrey and Zeke, then I'm saying, hey, running backs are dominating this. No one's listening to the running backs don't matter arguments, but teams are, because money is the one thing that you can go, hey, this stuff matters. Cornerbacks setting record deals, edge defenders setting record deals, and running backs falling through the floor. With the way the cap's gone over the last 5-10 years, it should be breaking deals. And it's not, unless you're arguing like CMC's twice the player of Nick Chubb, then there's no argument. These guys got deals in another level. And hey, 2 years ago, do Kamara and Chubb get massive, massive deals? Yeah, 100%. But the NFL's not there anymore.
No, not at all. Let's break down this deal. Over the Cap had already posted it early Sunday morning, and Jason Fitzgerald wrote a good piece and broke it all down. But I mean, we'll just look at it ourselves. Obviously, this year, Chubb's cap number went up about $500,000 to what it was already going to be. It's about 4.7 million. This is actually a backloaded deal, which is something that has been. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jack. This has been a trend with Barry. He's been backloading most of these deals.
Yeah, so they push as much cap into the future. So the players are still getting the money up front, but for cap purposes, they push it as far back and far back, because effectively it's a 2-year deal. It was a 2-year extension. So you've got his one rookie year left, which is the 4th year of his rookie deal, which is this season. Then you've got 2 years, which they've guaranteed. And then that last year is just a team option. They can just rub their hands and go, no, you've picked up a few injuries or this, and we walk away. And that's with all these running back deals. They're not, there's no protection for the players. And as well, I don't think this will be the final deal. Andrew Berry has not yet done a multi-year contract extension that didn't have void years. So I would keep an eye out with this deal. I think we see at least 2 void years coming in the next week.
Interesting. $12 million signing bonus, which is obviously spreads out over the next 3 seasons after 2021, but he'll get that 12 million right away. That's part of the signing bonus, obviously. 2022, his cap number does not go up very much at all. It goes up another $500,000. So 5.2 million, which not that bad. 2.5% of the cap. Not bad at all for a running back. Then you look at the deal, Jack. 2023, like you said, there's where it's the rest of the guaranteed money. A $14.8 million cap hit, 6.6%. He's still only the 3rd highest paid Brown currently, behind Myles Garrett, who's, I think his cap number is around 29 million here in a couple of seasons. And then Odell Beckham's contract still going on at 15 million. We'll see if that number changes, because if he comes back and has a monster 2021 year, I would think he's going to the negotiating table with the Browns trying to get an extension. And then, like you said, 2024, essentially a team option deal, $16.2 million cap hit. There's also a per game roster bonus of $425,000. The Browns can get out of it and take a $4 million dead cap hit. So not a bad deal in that final year. And he's going to be 29 years old at the time. So even if the Browns let go Nick Chubb, say he has a couple productive seasons still, what he's done, it wouldn't shock me if he could squeeze out another 2 or 3 year contract and make 14, $15 million a year as the cap continues to explode.
Yeah, he certainly could. And I think this is sort of, this might be an interesting trend to watch with the Browns. So with Myles Garrett's deal, that moved away from the norm. So up to that point, all of these edge players got, I'm trying to remember, they all got one more year than Myles got.
He took 5, they usually got 6, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I was 99% sure that's the one. And then all of these running backs, they tend to get 4, usually 5. Nick Chubb got 3.
Yeah.
So this could be what the Browns are doing to sort of potentially try to get favorable rates. And obviously it's not that favorable. We're talking about like $500,000 maybe. But they add up across different players. Hey, if you sign 5 players and you give them all 1 year less, obviously it could burn you in the long run. Because, hey, rather than getting that guy on the final another year of safety, if you do want to keep a Myles Garrett for a 6th year, you do want to keep someone else for a 6th year. Say you wanted to keep Chubb for a 4th year. Maybe it's Baker and you give him a 4 year rather than a 5 year, and you actually want to keep him for that extra year. Then you have to do another deal. But if that saves a few bits of money here and there, and if there are players in other positions, wouldn't surprise me if this is front office that doesn't really want to do third deals. With players, they're very much like, hey, you get a rookie deal, you get another deal. We might keep you for a 1 year if you're sort of a roster player, but we don't really want to extend you if you're a core piece. So, no. I think it's one to keep an eye on. Do they take shorter contracts for players as a way of sort of bargaining them to take nice deals?
You always mention when we've talked about these contracts, the percentage of the cap. And I went and looked on over the cap right now. Nick Chubb's deal would be 6.7% of the cap. You compare it to McCaffrey, Elliott, and Kamara. McCaffrey's was 8.1% of the cap. Elliott's was 8%, and Kamara is 7.6%. Now, clearly, McCaffrey and Kamara are different than Chubb because they bring more to the receiving game. But
the salary cap fell through the floor as well. So I'd say
that is
if you're trying
to
compare it, you probably want to use, say,
Jones,
maybe 210 million.
Okay.
So if we looked at what is Chubb's average per year?
12.2.
12.2 million divided by.
Would it be fair to compare it to Aaron Jones and like Dalvin Cook and Mixon's contracts in terms of cap percentage?
What was? No, because even that was higher. So you're looking at around, if you're looking at versus the other guys that you could probably compare it to everyone else, but use Chubb at 5.8.
Okay.
Because if the salary cap this year was 210, it'd be 5.8%. So I think that's where you start benching him, and then the numbers probably look a lot more even with that metric. It's just one of them weird years where the cap fell down rather than going up as it would. If the cap was 210, hey, we're looking at 5.8, which is it's a good deal.
Okay.
I think the key thing just to look at those 2 year windows. Hey,
right.
Everyone else got 2 million more over that time, and yeah, it's 2 million. It's not like the difference between winning a Super Bowl and not isn't that 2 million. But hey, is it good? Yeah. If the decision for this front office is we have to sign Nick Chubb, we can discuss whether that should be the decision any team takes. But if they said, hey, we have to sign Nick Chubb, they got a good deal. They got a good deal based on the market. Do you want to pay that money to a running back, and then the knock-on impact of you probably rush the ball more than if you had a third-round rookie or a Todd Gurley, or hey, Derrick Henry potentially gets cut in a year and you pick Derrick Henry up for $5 million a year. Do you run the ball as much? No. But it's one you look at a lot of these teams and they've managed to plug in rookies. 49ers, perfect example. Raheem Mostert was on our practice squad, and hey, he looks like a great back because a lot of it is scheme is a big factor. You scheme open holes, you block open holes, stuff gets done. And yeah, the difference between Chubb and Kareem Hunt, is it worth, what is it, 12? I think 12 versus 24. Yeah, 12. Is it worth 6 million a year? Is Nick Chubb twice the player of Kareem Hunt? I'd say no. Is he better than Kareem Hunt? 100%.
If you take the off the field issues, I would say Nick Chubb is twice the player Kareem Hunt is.
I only care about what happens between the white lines.
I get it.
But yeah, it's one of them that, hey, they got, if you're of the mindset that they have to pay Nick Chubb, they got a good deal.
So would you say, based on who won this deal, would you say the Browns won or Nick Chubb won, or both sides came out winners in this?
The Browns won, and every running back in high school, in college football, in the NFL, they're continuing to lose. I'd be honest, if you are a high school athlete, ask for a position change. Is that, if you're at high school level, by the time you get there, that is a really, really hard task. Play corner, because you've then got a great shot of making a roster. Not only do teams carry more corners, there's just a lack of talent there. So if you're going to be honest, that position is going down. You would not have looked at a player, and everyone says, hey, Nick Chubb's the best pure runner. Running back's about more than one dimension now. You need to do both to be an elite running back for me. And I think he can do a bit of catching. He needs to do more.
Yeah.
And show it on a consistent level. He's shown it on odd snaps. Hey, I was betting the over on his receiving yards every week and making a killing out of it. So I can't complain. But I think for him to be the top of the top, I think there's a little way to go there. But he's not a massive... The fact that he is a reduction on those other guys, I would have expected him to beat those Henry numbers, at least be in the 27.5 range. I think he could have easily got 28. That's where I thought it would go. Potentially with the franchise tags, it'd probably get there. But hey, can't complain. And I think last time I was on, we were discussing Sheldon Richardson, or it was the time before that.
It was right around that window. I think it was right after he had gotten released. And you called it, man. You did.
Yeah. If you listen back to that show, what did I say? Who's the biggest winner out of the Sheldon Richardson release? It was Nick Chubb.
Nick Chubb,
and
yeah.
The reason for that is because the Sheldon Richardson release freed up money for them to do other things.
Yep.
And when people say, oh, Sheldon Richardson's gone, this team's worse off. Well, that's fine. If you want to be in a position that, hey, you'd rather keep Sheldon Richardson and lose Nick Chubb, that's fine. But those are real decisions that go on in a front office. You can't just keep everyone. And releasing a player opens up doors in the same way that signing a player to an extension closes doors. If you're sat there and going, Justin Houston signed a deal with the Ravens, wouldn't it be good to have Justin Houston on our team? Well, if you've just spent 24 million over 2 years, then a player like him, a player like Troy Hill might not be available to us in the future, because whereas you could go out and get 4 of those players each year and be in a really, really nice position, hey, that might not be open. But no, it's all opportunity cost. And that was the interesting one with the Sheldon Richardson release, just because he was the only player going to get a short-term deal, whereas other positions, your Ward, your Baker, your Myles Garrett, they're big deals. Whereas, hey, they could have turned around and told Nick Chubb he'd got a 5-year deal. It wouldn't have been worth the paper it's on. Even Kamara got 50 million and 90 million over 5. Yeah, it's a 2-year, 27.2 million deal. So it's one you just got to take it all with a pinch of salt. When you hear these funny numbers floated around, and it's why I'd encourage people, hey, if someone says, what did Nick Chubb get paid? Say it was 24.4 million over 2 plus a team option. That'll make you look super, super smart.
So you've mentioned Kareem Hunt a couple times, and you also mentioned, like, you talked about Nick Chubb getting the ball more in terms of a receiver. First of all, reading this now. Kareem Hunt gets a $2.2 million roster bonus in 4 days, and that becomes guaranteed. And he gets another $1 million roster bonus due. So that's fascinating. Next year, he's due about $6 million. Say they start changing things up offensively and start giving Nick Chubb the ball more in terms of the receiving game. Do you see Kareem Hunt being expendable next year? Because obviously he's going to be paid more theoretically than Nick Chubb next season. And if they're going to start giving Chubb the ball more, you can take that $6 million and go spend it on a couple players potentially. Or if you want to go get, say, a Justin Houston, you can do that with that $6 million. I think this deal could mark the end of Kareem Hunt. Everybody's kind of saying, oh, next year we're going to have our entire starting offensive line and both running backs. I don't think that's the case. And I think you would agree with that. So what do you think this deal means for the immediate future of Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, so I didn't actually know it was 4 days before the roster bonus kicks in. And
I just was looking at it on Over the Cap, actually.
I still think that there's the opportunity he could get moved. I was thinking it was more mid-season, but at the same time,
I don't think it gets moved now. I think it's next year. Yeah.
Just on that one, though, when people say, hey, you could move him on, they just instantly think, oh, it's a draft pick in the upcoming draft.
Yeah.
Doesn't necessarily have to be. We added Ronnie Harrison, for instance.
Right.
Who last year, he was a good addition. He wasn't about getting worse the following year or anything. It was just like, hey, he's a good player. They could easily be out there keeping an eye on a team, and then a team goes, hey, the Rams maybe they're up for moving on from somebody who could interest the team, and then they go, hey, we've got too much running back, you've got too much linebacker, defensive tackle talent. I'm not talking about getting
another corner.
Donald, don't go too wild. Listen to it. Another corner. It could just be a position where they've got a little bit more than they need, and we've got a little bit more than we need at running back, where we actually go, hey, we might end up throwing in a fourth round pick and Kareem Hunt and go get someone else. Mm-hmm. So it's not sort of like people think if you move someone on, oh, we won't want to get worse. Who said we're getting worse? You don't necessarily have to get worse when you move a player on, or it will be about the future. So do I think that will happen? No. I guarantee they're sat there in the front office chatting about it. So that's going to be an interesting one. I can't see him here next year. I think he probably knows he's gone. I think they wanted one more year over Chubb, because then if Chubb wasn't happy, weren't able to get a negotiation done, they had the leverage there. And also then they weren't left out with a problem. He's got no guarantees in the deal. Yeah, he's got the 8th of April roster bonus for $1 million, but they can get rid of him before that. So no, I think this is the last year of both. Could something crazy happen mid-season? Yeah, but I think they'd probably want a player back to be going for it. Who knows? Something could go wrong with Baker and the season could be down the toilet halfway through the season. And then you're like, if we don't need him and the Rams want to offer us something in the future, hey, go for it. But I can't really see him moving this season. But they will certainly entertain it. If someone makes a really good offer, hey, you've got to listen to all deals for all players, because, yeah, there is everyone on this roster. If someone offered me a deal, that I would do it.
Yeah, I don't see them moving him now. I think Mary Kay reported it last week that they're not interested in trading him to the Rams or anybody. I think Kareem Hunt's safe this year. I just think next year, and depending on how Demetric Felton, if he makes the roster, how he performs as a rookie, because they're already rotating him both as a running back and a wide receiver, so they must have plans for him. I think him and Dearness Johnson, if both somehow make the team and they cut a Janovich or somebody, those are two affordable options to back up Nick Chubb. Dearness has proven he can get some carries. They can always add another running back. I understand. I see the face you're making.
Not Dearness Johnson. No, that dude ain't the answer. I'm sure he's a lovely, lovely chap, but he ain't the answer.
But I think like they will likely move on. They could always keep him next year. I mean, at $6 million, I don't know who else they could move around to keep them both. But I just think moving Hunt seems like a likely option going into 2022. But we don't want to look too far in the future. We just want to focus on the immediate. But I could definitely see Hunt Chubb getting more carries now because he got this contract, and the Browns are going to be like, we paid you, now we're going to give you a little more. Let's see if you can continue to dominate the game the way you have been.
Which has its negatives. Hey, we need more passing on first downs to be a team that dominates. And you look at the best team running the ball in terms of positive EV, looking at the value of each play, and it's the Kansas City Chiefs. But their best running offense is equal to the 12th best passing offense in the league. And that's the key stuff to look at. Hey, there will be a time in the future, probably, where running and passing become equal.
Yeah.
And then that will be the time when, hey, I might be sat there arguing for more running. And my argument between passing and running isn't, hey, what looks most fun or anything. Is, hey, what's more likely for the Browns to win a game and then us win a championship? Because I don't care too much of what looks the most fun on a Sunday. I would rather be sat there at the end of the season with rings.
Absolutely.
And it's that argument of entertainment versus championships. Hey, I would rather ruthlessly chase championships. I don't care if we sat there and it's like, oh, we don't see much on defense. Why? Because the offense is just tearing up the field. So yeah, I'm quite relaxed on that. Hey, just ruthlessly do what's going to get you the most efficient. If they're going to have a light box with 5 dudes in it, then I'm going to be banging the table going, run the ball.
Right.
Why are you passing this ball? You've got 5 guys in the box. You have to make that a run play. And so that'll happen. I want the most positive EV play. Obviously, you can't just always do the most positive EV because you've got to keep on the back of their toes. But that's the fear, that we need to see an increase, and the league's naturally moving that way. So I do think it will happen. We saw it in the second half of the season. We saw more and more passing, and we saw better and better results. It wasn't suddenly Baker got the offense. It was almost the offense was Baker rather than the offense was running the ball. So that's something that is a slight concern. Hopefully they're smart enough to go, it doesn't matter that we've invested a lot in this guy, but they do also need to be aware of that, because it happens all the time in games, in leagues. Hey, the weird example is Christian McCaffrey went down with the Panthers. They lost their most talented player and their offense was more efficient. Why? Because they were passing to wide receivers rather than running with Christian McCaffrey. And hey, it's really exciting when Christian McCaffrey runs with the ball. Hey, not because I've got him in loads of dynasty leagues, but also it's just fun visually. But at the same time, if you're passing the ball to a wide receiver, even with poor quarterback play, it's still more efficient than a handoff. So it's one of them that, yeah, is every team better with Christian McCaffrey in the lineup than out of it? 100%. Is Christian McCaffrey getting the ball worse than throwing at DJ Moore? No. And that's them weird sort of ones that it does have an knock-on impact.
Yeah, but I agree with you on all accounts like that. I do think, like, obviously we all seen Baker take off last year. It wasn't because of the running game. It's because they were throwing the ball more. He was getting comfortable with his receivers and the offense. But at the same time, it was like we got the lead, and then we turned the ball to 27 and 24, and we were closing out games to a degree. Obviously, our defense kept us on the edge of our seats most of the time, and then it came down to, like, Baker, you got to make some of these throws. But at the same time, if we did have a lead fourth quarter, and especially Nick Chubb, when he's averaging 10 yards per carry, which is still just a mind-blowing statistic to me, when you got the lead, if you can trust your running backs to not turn the ball over and to run effectively, that's going to help us close out victories. And if our passing attack takes off early, that's the best thing. We have a running game that's going to chew up the clock, get 4 or 5 yards per carry, and be able to close out a lot of wins. So if they can keep it balanced with a slight edge towards the passing game, I think this offense is going to take off, because we got so many weapons. Defenses are going to have to keep us pretty honest most of the time this coming season.
And I do want to see an increase in running on 4th and 1 and 4th and 2. Run
Amen.
that ball.
And
because there's no point spending the amount of money we do on that O-line, the amount of money we do on those running backs, and then cowardly punt the ball away. And I'm going to use the word cowardly because it is. Run that ball.
Yeah.
And I want to see more of it.
When you got a guy like Nick Chubb who keeps his legs churning, when he's getting ganged up on by 4 or 5 guys, you need to be running that ball on 4th and 1, 4th and 2, like you're saying.
Why not?
So Saturday, the Haslam spoke, as they usually do, the opening week of training camp. They just talk about the state of things. Of course, somebody threw in a question about whether they were getting minority ownership of the Cleveland Guardians. I understand it, but that's another topic for another day. They did slide in the fact, Jack, that another contract extension did happen, although it didn't happen recently. It happened a year ago. Paul DePodesta got a contract extension, a 5-year one. And this was something that I was digging last year and could never get the solid answer from some of the people I talked to. But he signed one around the same time that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry signed with the team as to be head coach. And obviously now Berry's the vice president of football operations. But you've seen this in San Francisco with Shanahan and Lynch. You've seen it in other organizations. They all signed 5-year deals together. Finally, the Cleveland Browns have become a stable, solid football franchise. And the key word in all that is alignment. Everybody's here through the 2025 season. This is what we've been begging for under the Haslam ownership, and it's finally here. DePodesta, Berry, and Stefanski are all locked at the hip. And it's good to see that everybody's aligned. Everybody's going to be together. And as long as the success keeps pouring in for the Browns, these guys are going to be here for a long time.
Hey, the nerds are taking over. And for a dude that sits on a beach in California all day drinking mojitos and working remotely, the dude's done good. So, no, I was over the moon. And the joy is it's not just 3 guys. There is so much talent in that front office. They have been raiding other teams.
Don't they have like 8 or 9 guys like in their analytics department, which leads the league?
Analytical staff of anywhere in the league. And that stuff is phenomenal because it's all about little edges. Why has Bill Belichick stayed at the top for so long? Because he's willing to search for edges and exploit edges. And it's not about, hey, what you do for 1 year is probably a dead edge within 2 years after that, because every team is watching what every other team is doing. So it's really, really, really promising to see that they're together. A lot of it now comes down to the franchise is on Baker's shoulders, which it's a really stressful part being because, hey, we've seen the ups and downs from Baker. The first few games in the season, we're thinking, it wasn't good. And anyone looking at those first 4 games of the season and being like, oh yeah, Baker's the guy. It's like, yeah, well, what are you drinking? You're on the Kool-Aid there. It was bad, but now we've seen it at the end, and it's like, hey, I want to see it for another season, and that is going to potentially define the future for all 3 of these dudes. That guy could keep them all in a job for 10 years. That guy could also get them all fired within 2 years. So it's it's crazy that you sat there and going, hey, I'm so excited about this coaching staff, the front office, all 3 of them guys. But at the same time, you could have 2 bad years and we could be sat here back chatting about it. So no, but there is a lot of pressure on Baker's shoulders, and it's rise and die. So it's going to be really, really exciting to see.
Absolutely. I love that. Like, they're all locked together. Like you said, they could be here 10 years, but if the wheels come off the tracks, all 3 of them could be out at the same time. I don't see DePodesta, like, if something were to like drastically happen and the team just plummets again, I don't see him surviving again. The same with Berry and Stefanski, obviously, but hopefully we never have to discuss that for like 10 years. Like, I don't even want to even think about that. I just love that everybody's together. They're locked. The Browns are winning. We're Super Bowl contenders. Like, life's good right now, man.
I could see Depot walking away at some point, just because he fancies a new challenge. He could go, hey, I want to look at a different sport. I want to do something else, because he's about process and everything. And if he feels like, hey, we've got a really, really good process here, hey, he might wind down his role and then maybe do something else on the side. That could be an interesting one to keep on. But hey, if the machine's rolling, he can wind down his role in a way. It might not be announced that that's what's happening, but he might just put a little less work in. And I think he'd still be involved. I just think it'd slightly tweak that. But hey, that doesn't really matter. If you've got the best analytical staff in the NFL working under you, hey, they're the guys that are coming up with the incredible stuff. Depot's there as just the quality control on top of that. And what a guy to have. So, no, it's really exciting. And hey, the nerds are taking over. The wins are coming on the nerds chalkboard. So, hey, we're back where it all started.
Last question before we head on out. Which contract extension do you think is coming next? Denzel, Teller? It doesn't seem like Baker is. It just seems like Baker's is kind of wait and see. They want to see more. And I feel like that's the case with Teller. So in my eyes, I think Denzel Ward's is next, basically, because what we've heard, those Chubb and Ward's extensions started at the same time. The OBR reported that months ago. So my thinking is Ward's would be next, and then Teller would be mid-season, and then Baker would be probably next offseason.
Yeah, and it's Baker's one where it's not really, both of them, Ward and Baker, the price isn't going to change that much over the next 12 months. Ward is a more known quantity. As long as they're going to have the injury data, because they see everything behind the scenes. They're not just going, oh, how many games did he miss? This is how bad his injury record is. Because an injury, not all injuries are created equal, and they will know that data behind the scenes of, hey, what's caused this? Can we stop this happening, etc.? Can we reduce it happening? And then they can look at that. So I think that's the only one for me that I think gets done. And it's only going to be the case of, hey, there's real red flags here. This injury stuff's going to be consistent and get worse, where you'd go, hey, we'll give it another year. We might do this more year to year. And, hey, we might just say, let's keep you for 4 more years with 2 tags. And then, hey, we're happy to let you walk. But we just can't, we don't want to commit all of this money and all this time because our injury data is that bad on him. Whereas your Baker stuff, it's like, hey, once you sign it, you take all the other options off the table. And I think he's the guy, but I'm only about 2/3 sure. If someone asked me, hey, it's evens, Baker is a top 10 quarterback each of the next 4 years, would I bet all of my earnings on it? No, I'm not betting that. It's like even at 2-1, I would not make that bet that all the next 4 years, he is going to be a top 10 quarterback. That for me is effectively what you're going and betting on when you do that deal. So, no, I think there's a good chance he does achieve that, but it terrifies me at the same time. And it's like, hey, if you're not comfortable, why do that? Because it's all right for fans to say, pay the guy, pay the guy, pay the guy. But if it goes wrong, then that's their guy. That's these guys' job. And they might never get another job in the NFL because of that decision, that one single decision. So it can be really, really risky. And also in a way that, hey, yeah, you can get out of these deals in 2 years' time. But do we want to be sat here in 2 years' time and Aaron Rodgers goes on the cheap, Baker really, 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 really regresses? And I'm talking, hey, we see year 2 Baker. It can happen. And Eagles fans would promise me the world out of Carson Wentz. Rams fans were promising me the world out of Jared Goff. Josh Allen's meant to be the next coming of the Messiah. I don't think he's going to play that well over the next 2 years. Herbert, is he going to be elite for the next 4 years? Don't think so. With all these guys, hey, do you want to nail your colours to the mast? And if the answer is no, why take yourself out of all those sweepstakes? Obviously, yeah, Tom Brady coming up available is not going to happen every year. But if you were sat there as a team at the minute, say the Browns didn't have a quarterback this offseason, if Tom Brady was available, who's Tom Brady going to sign with? He's coming to sign with the Cleveland Browns. Mm-hmm. And forget the money, forget everything else. He's going to look at the teams available and go, they've got the most talent. I'm going there. And give yourself options. At the end of the day, if it's going to cost you maybe $1 million a year on Baker's deal to not pay him next year rather than this year, fine. Who cares about $1 million? But you leave all of these options open because, hey, if it's that 33% that I think something doesn't go well and you sit there and go, hey, Rodgers is lights out. Do I want Aaron Rodgers or do I want a guy that we're talking about as a middle-of-the-road quarterback? Give me Aaron Rodgers and let's see what happens. But I feel great that Baker can be the guy, but I'm not betting my mortgage on it. why would we expect these guys to bet their jobs on it? Because that's effectively what you're asking them to do by paying him. So, they can get out of him, take massive dead cap hits and everything else. But that also then ruins your competitiveness at the same time because, hey, you need a couple of years to get out of that. Whereas this young core, that ain't going to be together for 4 or 5 years. So let's see what happens. Baker gets paid next offseason, I think. But Ward, I think, is going to get done.
Yeah, I'm with you. And like the thing with Baker, like I get the front office's stance actually, because it was only 8, 9 games we saw elite Baker, where he was right there with Rodgers and Mahomes. They are a data-driven front office. They like to see data. I think it's the same thing with Wyatt Teller. They want to see more. I can't fault them for that. Like, I cannot fault them at all for doing that. They want to see more. They want to see, okay, this is year 2 of Baker in this offense. The first time since college he's been in the same offense in back-to-back years. Let's see what he can do. If he comes out guns a-blazing, is still top 3, top 5 quarterback in this league, then you go to the table and say, let's get this deal done. I think Buffalo's I think Buffalo's doing the same thing with Josh Allen. It sounds like there's no progress on their extension. It does not shock me that Lamar Jackson's the closest out of the 3 because he's been productive in these 3 seasons. He's been the starting quarterback there. We've only seen 1 season really out of Allen. We've seen half a season out of Baker. Let's see more. Let's keep stacking these good games out of Baker Mayfield, then go to the table and say, hey, let's get this contract done. We'll give you $40 million a year. You're our guy. Let's go. If he comes out of the gate slow, I think everybody will say, hey, well, let's not rush to extend him. If he's struggling, there's no reason to rush this. I think that's fine. I do not fault the organization for doing that. But at the same time, that 8-game stretch was some of the best quarterbacking I've seen out of a Browns quarterback, if ever. So I get it from both sides. As a fan, would love to see Baker stay the quarterback for the next 10, 15 years, win a couple Super Bowls, be in the Hall of Fame. At the same time, I just want to see more. And I feel like a lot of Browns fans are saying that too. They just don't want to admit it because they don't want to be wrong. And that's fine too, because I don't want to be wrong either. I think Baker's the guy, but at the same time, I want to see more as well.
Yeah, no, and it's no harm in it. Hey, you can potentially say at the bye week, hey, Baker, look, here's the deal. It's better than what Lamar Jackson signed. It's similar to what Dak signed. Do you want to sign it? Yeah or no? And if not, hey, we'll sit down and chat in the off season. But he'll probably go, yeah, I'll have that. $40 million over 4 years. Do it. 3 of the years guaranteed. Maybe one of that guaranteed in the 3rd year tradable if something goes wrong, because that makes no difference to him if it's guaranteed or it's guaranteed and it can get traded. And sign on the dotted line, boom, done. 4 years, happy days, because it gets the year less than what some of these guys are giving up in 5 years. And it wouldn't surprise me if it'd be a massive deal to happen mid-season, but I wouldn't rule it out.
No, not at all, especially when Barry said the other day when he did his press conference, like he's not opposed to doing in-season contract extensions. So I think that's something to keep an eye on. But Jack, good to be back podcasting with you, man. Glad to get season 5 of the DawgLand pod off the ground. To our listeners, we'll be back a couple times this week. We got some guests lined up, so stay on the lookout for the podcast. Jack, go ahead and plug your Twitter and your podcast, and we'll get on out of here.
Yeah, so it's at Jack Duffin, DUFFIN on Twitter. DMs are open for any cap questions. Right at the DawgLand podcast is the Paul Brown podcast. We're back. We dropped one last week. We dropped one around today. And then I think it's going to be twice a week through the season. I don't really know yet. None of us really know. But no, it's all gravy. So no, it's good fun. I'll probably be back on the show whenever Denzel will get signed.
Yeah, yes, sir. That'll probably be the next time we see you, unless you just want to come on and talk about camp or preseason or whatever. You're more than welcome as always. Glad to have you part of the team. No,
people running around in training clothes don't really do it for me.
No, okay. Well, we'll see you running around in a Nick Chubb jersey soon. Just remember that it's coming your way. And as always, you can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08. You can follow the podcast at the DawgLand, as well as on Facebook. Just search at the DawgLand. and it'll come up. Give us a like there. Follow us on Twitter. And until next time, go Browns.
Go Browns.